All right, welcome back, everybody, to DangIT Prodcast, the show where we talk about video games, a little bit of anime, probably not manga this time. My name is Justin, and welcome back, everybody. Solo Pod. It's been a while. It's been a while with that. A lot of stuff has happened. Not necessarily in the gaming news of things, but some personal updates. I'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about... Let me look at this. We got some pickups here. We also have just a little bit of news here and there. I'm not gonna lie, it's just been kind of like, well, I guess as Phil has said, kind of a sparse week of things. We are streaming just a little bit earlier than usual, hence the unavailability for a lot of our folks here. Phil's working. Mark is currently dealing with things like on the personal matter. Nothing huge on that front. Some major stuff on my end. I'll talk about that a little bit. We're talking about updates from the NSO, a certain game release here and there. Absolum. I actually wanted to, I kind of wanted to talk about that. Some updates as far as like what Sony and AMD got cooking. Nothing crazy, and something we should definitely not really be talking too heavily about. This is stuff in the future. Some weird stuff that Square Enix has decided to do, but I'm not opposed to it. As well as an update for an old game. Should we even call it an old game? It's Dragon Ball Fighters. Is it Dragon Ball Z Fighters? No, I think it's called Dragon Ball Fighters. See, it's been a long time since I don't even remember the actual full government name for it. It's gonna kill me if I don't find out. Dragon Ball Fighters. That makes a lot more sense. I just kind of did the acronym. There we go. All right, guys, let me just go ahead and start off with a little bit of the heavier news of things. I feel like you guys are privy to know about this kind of stuff. I just need to make sure that I get a time code for everything. I'm trying to keep that as a good habit, but the problem is that I'll probably need to move a couple things around just so I can actually see everything just fine. Okay. It's about my eyes, or at least one eye. So I have been just kind of doing things just typically this past week, but things have been developing as of last Sunday. So as in the last podcast we did on Saturday, everything was totally normal. I even had a whole Comic-Con thing going on. I didn't even notice it then. But on Sunday, I noticed a little bit of difficulty seeing with my left eye. I described it as kind of a region in the peripheral vision that is kind of shadowed, cloudy a little bit, harder to see, but the rest of the peripheral totally okay from what my vision's worth, you know. I typically have nearsighted vision, and my left eye kind of powers a lot of that, while my right eye kind of supplements a little bit of further distance. I thought it was no big deal. I thought this weird situation was something that I typically would have had beforehand, and if anything, give it a good night's rest and we'll figure it out. It kept persisting. So on Tuesday, I decided to schedule an optometrist appointment because it was roughly around that time. I've been a little bit more on top of those appointments since losing my glasses last year and having to get a really quick last minute check on things and get new frames and everything like that. So since then I've been kind of on top of it, but under their advice, I went ahead and did additional scanning, and they found an issue going on in the back of my eye. It's called a retinal detachment. And if you guys don't know, the short story of it is that your retina is connected to a tissue in the back of your eye, and that tissue kind of helps transfers a lot of nutrients to your eye, from blood to oxygen, or the oxygen in your blood, and then you transfer stuff like that. So what is supposed to look like just a one-to-one connection now looks like this on my left eye. And it can be kind of severe. In fact, such a condition is considered an emergency type of thing. So they definitely have referred me to a specialist, but the problem is that specialist doesn't support my current insurance. So unless I want to pay out of pocket, and that's not even talking about the actual possible surgery I would need, we're already upwards in triple digits for how much it's costing. So it's okay. So I've just been doing a back and forth stuff this past week. I've literally had to collect all the updated notes as far as what's been going on this past week, gaming news, just earlier today because I've just been dealing with that. So I've never anticipated how bad it would be as far as like how, medical insurance and Medicare like stuff can be kind of a doozy to deal with until now. Where last year I was kind of screwed over as far as like my doctor's stuff because I kept switching because that's how my like employer's all about it. And they do the best they can, but that did mean I was swapping consistently with different providers, and I'm like, man, why are we doing this? But the problem is that I need to actually speak with like my actual primary doctor, who I've not established with because of the new insurance. So apparently, I have to get like an authorization, like with them, to get the preferred specialist under my insurance. And at the earliest, maybe I'll get a follow up with them because I forward already the documentation, the notes, and everything to them. But it's just one of those things that's kind of pending right now. So I'll give you guys like a quick update on that one. I got some appointments going on. It's literally the week after next Monday that I'll actually get to see my primary, and hopefully before then I'll have like some kind of referral to go to. Otherwise, it'll be that week to get it. So it's like, otherwise, as far as what you guys need to know, vision is pretty solid, all things considered. It's not absolutely blinded. So like with my left eye right now, I can still see like everything, even like what's actually kind of like blotted out. The way I see it here is that like sometimes it just kind of casts a little shadow on things. So it can be kind of like blurred here and there, but otherwise, so far, okay. If not treated though, will get worse. So, so I'm dealing with that. Uh, it is what it is for now. I've done all I could on my part, so that's kind of what's going on, and I'll continue to do follow-ups, and I'll give you guys updates probably by next podcast. But yeah, that's the health thing. What will probably end up being like a consequence of that, as far as like your guys' impact, will probably just be, I mean, the podcast will be still going, but maybe for lesser degrees, because this is still technically like a little bit of a strain on my left eye, probably. So I'm just trying to take it easy. Hence why I'm actually wearing glasses. I otherwise don't need to wear glasses for like the typical like podcast run or anything I do like in front of my like computer. I can actually just see just fine. But when it comes to driving and whatnot, like I do need to have glasses on, and this is just kind of like for extra measure. So just to give you guys like an update on that one, be as transparent as possible. And actually, you know what? This is kind of off topic and everything like that. But I did want to talk a bit about. Hold on, I should probably. I'll silence my phone a little bit here, in case you guys hear that. But there's also something else I wanted to bring up too. It's kind of convenient considering that we are running a solo pod this week. Not gaming related news, but it is kind of related to just like another podcast I kind of listen to here and there. I've kind of been off and on with it. It's the Nintendo podcast with beat 'em ups. He was talking about like the future of like that podcast, and the reason I bring them up for this pod is because of the fact that that particular dynamic he's got going on has been like an ever-changing thing. And what resonated with me was the fact that people come and go with that podcast, similar to how people here like on the DangIT Prodcast have things going on like in their external life, and they got things that they got to take care of. And I kind of wanted to just share my thoughts about that too, because I totally feel that. I started this podcast back in 2012. 2012, it's crazy. Fresh out of high school, kind of like in between like that and undergrad. And I just wanted to make YouTube videos because I was so motivated that ever since high school, or ever since middle school, really, when I was starting to watch like vlogs and everything like that. And during that point, like video games were like starting to like become like a brand new thing. And I made a podcast as a means to connect with people that would otherwise be separated from us because we all run different lives. And the podcast would be something where we would all come together and still like have conversations. See where that's gone. See where that's helped, And this is not to say that I'm like upset with like Mark or like Phil or Naya or Gabe or Seffi or like Christoph or David, like because we're all we all have like different lives, And the podcast here is not to just try to like chain them up, tether them up to like a singular platform just so we can all stay connected. No, it's always been like a voluntary thing for them. So I'm just happy that they get to do what they want to do. But as a result, you guys see like the impact that has. And I think if anything to kind of take away from like what you've seen, like or at least what I've just talked about regarding like the Nintendo podcast and also this podcast too, is that unless you're running like a full business and you have like hired staff, people's lives change, and change is kind of the only consistent thing in the world. To like a further reach, that's kind of like the situation with my eye and everything like that. Things change. Sometimes it just so abruptly, or just like it happens over time. So I don't know. There's not really the biggest takeaway about me going on that tangent, but I wanted to bring that up because I feel that like almost every week. Everyone's like appearances are kind of like almost like a dice roll. You don't really know exactly which like host or co-host is gonna show up. Just that I appreciate them being here. But I think regardless, I think I tried to do my best with like the podcast running solo. I think it's fine as it is right now. I think though, if it, under a circumstance where like I had no like guests showing up for weeks on end, then I think we would have like an actual conversation going forward about like what happens to DangIT Prodcast. So not to like scare people about that, but that's just like an FYI. I think things will just change depending on like, who shows up here and there. But sorry about that tangent. Let me go ahead and jump over to some pickups. I think that's in order right now. I'm going to go ahead and actually, it's about to be 12 minutes. That's great. I'll put that as the time code. So I got a couple things like this past week that have shown up, and they're all limited run. Surprise, shock. But I will tell you guys, next week is going to be like the big one. It's going to be the big one. Ooh, I'm excited about it. But let me just talk about what's been showing up through a limited run. So I think this was all one package. It was one package. So talking about the Nintendo Switch, actually, we have Front Mission 2 Remake. That is to say, there was like a Front Mission 1 that actually had gone like a while back. The story with that one was the fact that like it was I don't know what kind of edition it was. It was like a whole like sleeve and everything like that. And it was the last copy like at my local GameStop before it shut down. But it was just one of those things where like, oh, this is like a tactical RPG, it seems. I mean, it's from Square Enix, so I mean, yeah, all right, fair enough. So I mean, aside from Final Fantasy Tactics, which everyone's like raving about like these past few weeks now, this is another like tactical RPG that they made. And so, having picked up Front Mission 1 because I was just generally interested as someone who's like a Fire Emblem fan, excuse me, I gotta like work on that. Yeah, no, I was like, I'll add it to the backlog. And now this is added to the backlog as well. So I don't think there hasn't been any other Front Mission games aside from 1 and 2. I just remember like way back when we had Nintendo Direct about this, and they were saying that, well, we're making like remasters of Front Mission 1 and 2. It was a while back, and now we have like a physical for this one. I don't know if this will be open up for like retailers or whatnot. I just got it through limited run. I believe Front Mission 1 was also the same case, but I think I don't know what the process is like. But I think, some retailers or third parties will help with like additional prints and whatnot. So I'm just glad that I actually have something like that. And then finally, guys, this is a twofer. I'll bring these two up simultaneously. But we have Yakuza 4 and 5 remaster. These are physical games that otherwise never got physicals on the Xbox platform. So I'm actually glad that I picked these ones up. The only downside is that we're probably going to see remakes of the Yakuza games like going forward, since they had Kiwami like 1 and 2, and now recently announced Kiwami 3 plus Dark Tides. So an additional incentive on top of the remake as well. So you could possibly expect a Yakuza 4 or Yakuza Kiwami 4 plus something, But with this, actually, if I can actually bring it up over here. Like moving like everything like that. But by doing this, this is Yakuza 4 and 5, I can finally complete the sleeve right here. So this is a limited run type of collaboration type of thing, and it emphasizes, excuse me, the titles Yakuza 0, Kiwami 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 remastered. And with those recent pickups, the entire thing is complete for this particular set. Because now we have Kiwami like 3 plus Dark Tides. If you want to include like 0 Director's Cut, there's also that version. And well, I mean, I have these now. Just took a while, you know. I think it looked. I mean, I might be petty about it, but this looks nice. You know, it's nice to have like a physical collection of things, something that has like a memory that you can bring up. I'm also just trying to like. I'm trying to soften the blow that this actually ended up having on like the collection, because now it's like, well, I initially got them to start the journey, right? Because I've been hearing a lot about the series and I wanted to get into it like at some point, but even though these guys are going to eventually be in the back burner of things, there's more. And then we're not even talking about like, what was it, Pirate Yakuza? Or I'm trying to remember what the actual full name of that one. That one's that's an interesting one. I think it's Yakuza in Hawaii. It's something. But yeah, there you go, guys. It's complete. Well, this particular set. Asterisk, the Yakuza collection is complete. But that's pretty much it as far as like collections. I think I'll just put these on the side here since we're running the show still. But I think the next thing I wanted to bring up, hold on. There we go. Ooh, so I promise you guys, thumbnail and everything like that, we're talking about it like sooner rather than later. But I want to talk about this short that had popped up on Nintendo side of things. We're talking specifically about the video Close to You. The Yakuza is real. Thank you, Abraham. But so this is kind of like out of left field for Nintendo. But I mean, honestly, like when you have different projects that you're just trying to drop and just show to people, it's always going to be like kind of like a shock to everybody to see it. But this, I'll give you guys the contextual stuff. So Close to You is a Nintendo short that they posted like across all the platforms. You see it on YouTube, you would see it on Twitter and everything like that. And it just looked like, you know, just a short about like a mother, primarily like the baby, and like the fantastical things that happen like as a baby that just don't really seem to like defy like that defy physics and everything like that, as far as like the magical nature of it. Some Pixar stuff, you know. But people were kind of weirded out by it. It's like, okay, well, why though? Why something that doesn't seem related to any of the Nintendo works whatsoever? But then people were starting to pick at it. It's like, okay, why are things starting to like move around? Why are we seeing stuff in the background? People were like hyper analyzing this. And they were right to do so, because the following day they would post like an extended video over on Nintendo Today. Nintendo Today being kind of like their more kind of exclusive way of like posting new stuff that later get reposted later on like other platforms, but also those platforms would get privy to like possible censorship and copyright stuff. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but what you ended up getting on Nintendo Today was an extended look on that trailer or short that pretty much extends it from like 2-3 minutes to like 8 minutes. And it pretty much unveils like, yeah, the invisible things that were acting in that video, Pikmin. It was a Pikmin video. What does this mean exactly? I'm not entirely sure, aside from it just being like just art in and of itself. But this is pretty much like something that Nintendo Pictures has been like working towards. One of many shorts, I'm pretty sure. But I don't know when we'll be getting anything else from them, or if this even like correlates to like a new Pikmin game or anything like that. I think a lot of people are just kind of curious about like that latter half, but you know, I do appreciate the fact that they are going into animation a little bit more, especially since they've been collaborating well with you know, Illumination, and maybe now they're just trying to work on an internal like team to make that kind of stuff happen more often. I'm kind of down for it. But in the meantime, what we just seen is just what we've seen. It's definitely kind of one of those things that you don't really otherwise expect. But I don't know. I'm kind of down for like seeing like new stuff. I just think that some people might be like, it's weird because if you were in the discourse online between the times of like the initial video posting versus like what it actually is like the day after, a lot of people just out in like the woodwork just saying that like, oh, this has nothing to do with Pikmin whatsoever, and now like people are like, are you sure about that the day afterwards? And it's just been interesting. It's been an interesting conversation. So I mean, people are like free to express their opinions. That's why this podcast exists. But yeah, it's funny. It's really funny. All right. Next thing on topic, and just to let you all know, if possible, we'll see if we can keep like the podcast like relatively short on things, just for the sake of my eyes. Just for the sake of my eyes. Or one singular. We have an NSO update. So I'm glad they are first and foremost continuing to add on to the update. I wasn't expecting them to throw in Bubsy. Bubsy in Claws Encounters of the Fur Kind. A very interesting title. You know what? I wasn't a part of that meeting. I couldn't tell them otherwise. Like, hey, could you like, can we like shorten up the, like this title? It's just really interesting for that one because Bubsy, that particular title that they announced for the Super Nintendo on NSO, Nintendo Classics, the full government, that's also going to be part of the Bubsy collection. I don't remember when that's coming out, but yeah, essentially, those who have like NSO will be able to actually play like that particular version of the game. I guess the benefit with like the Bubsy collection is just seeing a lot of the, well, not only just having the additional games, but also probably get a little bit more insight and behind the scenes on like the developments of some of the games just through artwork, etc. But the next title that they actually introduced was Fatal Fury Special. And if you guys don't know about that one, you know what? Same. But as far as what I've like read in their description, it was that this is pretty much Fatal Fury 2, but there's more characters. There's more characters. Some of them are just gonna be open, like available, like right out the gate. But there's some that will just be openly available when you unlock certain things in that game. And you know what? That's kind of how fighting games used to be. You'd have to clear through like all the different modes. You have to go through like some like trials here and there, like time it out, and then you would get like certain characters to show up as boss like characters slash be available to play later on. But that's what Fatal Fury Special is all about. I think Phil would otherwise give you like a longer version explanation about that. But I did want to also talk about this one. This is the third update. Mario and Wario. Um, this is one that's being released to the West for the first time. It was available like in Japan way back when. But from what I understand, this kind of seems like, and you know what? I don't know the full history of Super Nintendo, but this is one that's using the mouse support on the Switch too. Actually requires it, where you actually have to like move your mouse around and pretty much function the game or play it like it was the Mario versus Donkey Kong. I think specifically with the minis. I think it was the follow-up games prior to the Game Boy Advance game, where you actually have to control the minis, kind of like a Lemmings like situation, and that's kind of like how it like works out. I don't have like too many opinions about that, except for the fact that like I do appreciate the fact that they are adding more mouse-supported games just so they could take advantage of like the technology there. But that's a tough one because I mean maybe not a tough one because if you have a separate like mouse, USB mouse, and you plug it into the dock, then you can actually like run it on like a standard Nintendo Switch like platform. Otherwise, you can use the Switch 2's Joy-Con. So pretty nice on that front. And I appreciate the fact that they are still willing to continue to add more mouse supported games, as I said earlier. I didn't even, oh shoot, I didn't like tag that. I didn't even like add a time code for that one. I'll have to like go back and do that later. It's all good though. Because there's a new game that came out this past week, and I wanted to give it like its flowers because it looks really, really cool. I'm trying to remember when I last heard about this one, or rather, I guess when did I initially hear about it? But I want to make sure you guys know about it too. Uh, Absolum. So there's this beat 'em up roguelike called Absolum. Um, mainly, I don't know too many things about like the development of this one. Moreover, like the music. I'm trying to remember like and how to pronounce like the guy's name. I mean, he's made like the whole soundtrack to Ori and the Blind Forest and Will o' the Wisp, which are fantastic. The scores over there are really good, but he's also made other works here. His name is Gareth Coker. I don't know actually how to pronounce his last name, but essentially, just think about Coke as in like Coca Cola, or in short Coke, and then just add an R at the end, and that's how you spell it. But you know what? Actually, let me see like his I guess the resume, if you will. Uh, but he's kind of been the lead like composer when it comes to Absolum. But he's also made the Ori games as far as the soundtrack there. Let me see. Uh, Also some stuff with Ark. Interesting. Oh, was he really? Oh shoot, yeah, right. He co-composed Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and that's really good. That's also just a fantastic game in general. You guys should definitely play that one too. But it's fantastic. And the crazy thing is that what people will probably get people's attention is the fact that there was a co-composer or guest composer in Absalom, Mick Gordon, and he I think who was the what's the boss name they did the composition for? The Underking. It's crazy, dude. You should check it out. It's available on like all the streaming services and I think on YouTube as well. Uh but aside from the music, this game looks like really, really good. It looks super polished. And I just been keeping my eyes out for that one. That's Hades 2, Soak Song, those are like I guess I would say like indie games that I would like definitely keep your eyes on. What would I call them at this point? Like, would you say that I guess I mean I can't say much about Absolem because I don't really know too many of like like, I guess the development there. All I know is that Dom Emu is the one who's like kind of coordinating and I guess also partially like making and developing that game. But otherwise, I only see a lot of their work towards like smaller, quote unquote, smaller games. But we're also seeing like another tier of like game developers that aren't like necessarily like the third parties that we know of like Capcom or like Square Enix or something like that. They're kind of on a smaller scale, but they're otherwise still not to be trifled with. I'm just telling you guys right now. But I don't know. This one looks really solid. It's like $25, and right now because they're relatively new and they're just I think this is something that indie developers just kind of like push out there. It's a little bit cheaper too. I think it's like $22. If you have like PC and you like check out Fanatical, I think like they have codes for like $20. Yeah, no, it's like damn, dude, that's pretty good. That reminds me, actually, there was a I didn't even like put a time code on that one either. Or no, I think I did. Hold on. I did not. I'm so bad at this. What happened? My rule is that if something happens twice, it happens all the time. I gotta break it. I gotta break through the cycle on that. I totally forgot what I was gonna talk about. I'm just kind of going through these like really really fast. But oh, the thing with Absalom was the fact that like the Prime deal day was happening like earlier Monday, I think Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, it was like Tuesday and Wednesday. And I took advantage of that. I bought some covers here and there for like both the Joy-Cons and my Switch 2 Pro controller. Thumbstick covers like from JSOX. Those are pretty nice, but I also bought like the 1 terabyte micro SD express card from Lexar. I think they were going around for like 180 something. I think originally 220. Shame on me because I guess I should have waited the day after Prime Deal Day was over because on Prime they showed it to be like 150 something, and I was like, damn, I could have like spent that money on Absolem and or something like that. I was like, ooh, I don't know, I don't know what happened. I fumbled. I fumbled. That's ultimately what just ended up happening. But there's something I want to make sure I like actually get the time code for this one correct. So I want to talk about something just real briefly. This is something that's in the future, but a weird like PlayStation video that just kind of popped up with Mark Cerny, and I think someone, ah man, this guy had like a couple of titles here. Oh, I already have the tab open for it because I was trying to like look into it. It's What was it? Jack Hugh? What was it? SVP GM? I don't know exactly like those titles, but he showed up like with Mark Cerny, like on an actual PlayStation YouTube video talking about like developments on like their GPU and stuff like that. So essentially, these two are working closer together to pretty much like evolve the tech with GPU stuff because I think the path is towards like, upscaling when it comes to like game resolution to make things like look super clear while also not like just requiring so much like from other like peripherals like on your platform. And I think with the relative release of like the PlayStation 5 Pro and going in that direction, I think you're seeing a lot more of that too. I think you also see that in the Xbox handheld as well, the Xbox ROG Ally, and just an overall like just work towards just going that path. And it does kind of lead into like a little bit of discourse as to whether or not like I mean we've talked about this before, but is like the AI upscaling kind of like the way to go in the future? It's hard to say because for me, I've definitely grown up in a time where it was always just like graphical update and they could just do it and we would just like pay willingly. But now it's not so much like the actual like output of it, but moreover like how do we supplement like existing hardware to be able to essentially make things a little bit more cost effective because otherwise you're spending like hundreds and hundreds of dollars like almost every 5 years or something like that on like a new piece of hardware and it only gets expensive going forward. So I I don't know, I'm kind of like mixed about that. I guess like overall like is AI upscaling the way to go? And I know that I'm not one to really like notice those bit of details. Like some other person might be more like well equipped to answer that question or have a different take on it. I think it's otherwise not too bad like of a path going forward for now. Especially if it's not at all noticeable like for like the general like populace. But what will that actually look like in a next like generation hardware? That's kind of an interesting thing because like at that point like if we're working on just like upscaling stuff, what will make things different from like a PlayStation 5 to a PlayStation 6, which they've been kind of like working towards, or like I guess hinting at, And I can't tell you. I wish I knew like what else would they like maybe supplement, but like the future of like hardware is going to be very interesting to like, just kind of monitor and observe. I think going forward, I think, or at least in my personal opinion, I think having a little bit more of a focus on like AI upscaling just for the sake of making games like look better, run better, but also not like cost people their wallets. I think that's generally a nice thing. But I also understand like arguments about why people don't look at that as like a true next evolution to things where it's like I guess people will say like that's not like legitimate 4K. That's just like upscaled 4K. That's actually just 17 like that's 720 or something like that. But I'm not like too heavy in that argument, but I also acknowledge the fact that such a thing like exists. I'm just definitely in it for just like a very smooth like experience. Uh Visual fidelity otherwise, I guess I would have to just see it more in the future to have like maybe a stronger take on that one. But that's currently like my stance on it. It's also really strange. I know that I talked about Mario and Wario earlier on, and you know what? Let me just do my thing right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and add another keynote here, or a little topic here. At 34 minutes, thank you. So you know how I was talking about Mario and Wario, and that was the first time like that was releasing into the West, like officially. If you already had like ROMs and everything like that, at least you had that in the catalog and you just knew it existed. But otherwise, it wasn't really like super approachable, I suppose, as far as like how to get it. Um, Interesting thing on Square Enix's side. I don't know what's going on with Square Enix, and I don't know why they decided to go forward with this, but they're doing a Final Fantasy 7 and 8 bundle there, as well as a Final Fantasy like 9 physical that'll be releasing for the West. On top of releasing a dual bundle for Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Rebirth as one bundle. For PlayStation 5, I believe. Well, I guess it would have to be because there's no PlayStation 4 version of Rebirth. But interesting. I only say that because of the fact that I was very well aware of there being physicals for 7 and 8 and 9 physical. It's just really interesting why they're doing, Western releases now. It's the same thing as like the Final Fantasy like 1 through 6 bundle, as well as, well, I guess this in this case Mario and Wario. I've always felt like we've been kind of behind on that kind of stuff, but it's just interesting when they actually decide to do it like years afterwards. It kind of makes you wonder, like, well, why didn't we try doing that, like with like universally, like universal release of a physical all around? But that I wasn't part of that meeting. I would have otherwise pushed it. Trust me. I would, if I was in that meeting, I would have just told like the higher ups, like, hey, listen, I don't want to bother you with your time. I just want to like prompt it up that if we took in the extra like bit of resources and we released this worldwide as physicals, then people would buy it. I have no graph to tell you like exactly how that's going to help with sales and everything and productivity. Well, I mean, just profits and everything, but trust. And I just leave the meeting. That'd be it. I mean, it's good. Like, if you, no, I shouldn't say that. I was gonna straight up say, if you cared, you would have gone in like the Asian versions or something like that. No, 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 no. It's a lot easier for like the consumers to be able to just directly get that from like their typical retail stores, or like just one that's like just available on the West Coast, than having to go through a third party. Like in this case, you would have to go through Play Asia to get like those versions of Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. But the fact that they're being more open on releasing physicals, that's still a win-win ultimately in my book. It's just, again, it's just weird that they don't do that universally like from day one. And I just could not tell you like what the reasoning behind that would be. Very interesting. You know what's also been, here's, and this is, I'm just saying, this has been a very, very, very weird whole week. But I want to also talk about the fact that we got an update to a pretty old. I don't want to really say it's old because like it makes my skin like recede. But Dragon Ball Fighters got an update. The game is going on strong. Like it just texted you from the hospital saying I lived, because we have another character showing up, and I mean, shocker, it's Goku, but it's Super Saiyan 4 Goku from the Daima series. Bigger distinction, I will let you know. Actually, no. No. It's just I don't know. Like, it'd be kind of cooler to see maybe like, I mean, this is kind of tough. I think it would be really cool, in my personal opinion, if they had like just Daima Goku. And well, I mean, no, that's off because they already had. Well, no, 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 no. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with like Budokai. Um, So yeah, no, fighters did not have a Daima Goku. So I guess like they could have done like a Daima Goku and have like different forms, but it just be like Goku base form as a kid, and then for Goku, Super Saiyan 4 Goku in Daima form, whether that be like in his kid form or the adult form, I'll let them decide. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna just roll my eyes and say it's another Goku type of thing. It's just really interesting to see that that game has gotten so much support. And I mean, for the average like person who like plays through like Dragon Ball Fighters, that's great. It's great that they continue to support that title, but I don't know like to what extent. And that that goes into more discourse about like games that get that type of support like going forward all the time, like Final Fantasy 7 like 14 always getting updates here and there, and that's like a pretty old game since it's like at initial release. But I mean, if people still play it, then like it's still like very much so a valid update regardless, I guess I would say. It's just interesting because you haven't really seen a lot of updates for like fighters in a while. What was the last update? What was indeed the last update for things? Dragon Ball Fighters update. I guess I could probably like look at Steam maybe and see. I don't really have much of a way to like track exactly like what they're doing with it. Aside from like the recent like Goku news. So that might be kind of lost on me and I'd have to dig further. But That's very interesting. Let me see. There's something else I wanted to bring up before we go ahead and wrap up on things. Um, I actually wanted to bring this up. Part of like a lot of what I've been able to talk about was actually in benefit of the guys bringing in stuff. They weren't able to actually show up on the pod, but they definitely brought in like things that they wanted to, have as like a topical thing. Whether they actually gave me like opinions about it or not, it was totally up to the person. In this case, shouts to Anaya for actually, you know what? I'll even add it as like a separate like topic note here. So shout outs for our little section here. Shout outs to Anaya. Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. Hold on. My time code. Oh, I got my time codes messed up. Shoot. So, a little bit of context. OBS has two time codes, one for the live stream and one for the actual like recording. I need to get the recording. I got the time code for like the stream for the Dragon Ball Fighters talk. That's unfortunate, but we will carry on regardless. I wanted to talk about or add like a little subsection for shoutouts to the guys for just bringing up the topics here and what they might have wanted to talk about. For Anaya, he wanted to bring up the Dragon Ball Fighters update. That's it. Thank you, Anaya. Shoutouts to Phil. He and I also were kind of linked in, or locking in on the NSO updates for Super Nintendo. He added a little bit of extra stuff here. So Mario and Wario, he said, previously never released in the US, developed by Game Freak. Sorry, I pretty much was gonna combine those two together, but that's actually interesting. I didn't know that was Game Freak that made that one. Fatal Fury Special, really decent port of the Neo Geo OG version, I suppose. And then Bubsy, what could possibly go wrong? He says. But he also added, for some weird reason, Square Enix is finally releasing the double pack for Final Fantasy 7 and 8 remaster, as well as 9 in the States physically, even though it's had like a physical copy in Asia for years now. It's in a, that's weird, isn't it? But you know what? Fair enough. Oh, that's right. Battlefield 6. So, not a lot of us are getting Battlefield 6. Mark would have otherwise wanted to get it, but that's a money constraint type of thing. But I don't think a lot of us have much takes about Battlefield 6. But you know what? If it was there, and if I was like really like that big on that, then I would probably want to talk about it. I did want to talk though about Absolum because that one looks really sick. I wanted to give a quick shout out to a game that I'm currently playing in the backlog that I wanted to clear through before like the end of the year talks, and that would be Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Played the demo before, and it convinced me to get like a physical or a limited run copy. And I've been playing that now, like as my physical card. That game is sick. Like I said that the demo was really cool. Nah, the full game's like no, it's like a tier higher than that. It's like it's really, really cool. If you guys have not tried out like Shinobi Art of Vengeance, I think it's available on all the platforms. Uh, Sick. That's super sick. And you know what? That's all I get really. It's like, yeah, all right, great, Justin. Do you have any other elaborations on why we should get Shinobi Art of Vengeance? It's just cool, dude. It's just like really, really cool. Like it's stage based, but each stage is like a Metroidvania in which you will definitely not have all the abilities on hand to get all the discovery stuff and all the different like collectibles. So you have to come back to it like eventually. But it's also like don't worry about it because that's not like the core thing you should do. You should like go from point A to point B, fight the boss battle. Those have been like really cool too. I just wrapped up with what was it, Kiryu in the Neo City level. That's do the music there. The music in general is super good. So go get Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Okay. But sorry, I also wanted to bring this thing about like Absolum. Speaking of which, I said that like Shinobi like was available for everything. And I'm thinking about Absolum, and I was like, oh yeah, there was a little bit of news about that. So like Absolum came out recently, and it's available on Switch, It's available on PlayStation. It's available on like PC through I think Steam only right now. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but there's not an actual Xbox version. It was kind of interesting. It's like like if you're releasing it on PC, why not get it on Xbox as well or release that? And it was from an interview, and you'll have to cite it for me as far as like who or where it came from. But essentially, like the devs there or the representative said that Xbox wasn't a priority. So I guess that's an L on Xbox's side, but like, what does that actually mean as far as like a priority there? That's kind of what I want to know. But that does kind of suck because Xbox typically gets like the worst when it comes to like a multi-platform release. Well, I mean sometimes. I can only think of like a couple of games like on hand that may not like get that like type of support. I know that for like the Atelier series, like although like Koei Tecmo like it's a third party, um most of the time you don't really see there being like an Xbox copy. Like for example, like Atelier Yumio was on Xbox, but I think the Atelier Resiliana, I know I butchered that, but that game is not on Xbox, I don't believe. I'll have to double check that. Before I actually say that, I should probably double check that. Yeah, no. It says Microsoft Windows, but otherwise yeah, it's not on Xbox. So, I don't know. That really sucks. I wish that they would do multi-platform releases, but it is what it is. It's yeah, like what does the priority mean exactly? And I just wanted to like air that out there. That's also a game I need to get at some point. Um, the full government's Atelier like Resoliana, uh, the Red Alchemist and the White Guardian. That's an interesting like bit of like context because it takes place in the Res series, I guess I'll say, the Resna series, and that's initially like a mobile game that has stopped support over on the West, so kind of weird. That's tough. Oh, actually, speaking of which, you know what? I had this little bit I wanted to like bring up. I'll go ahead and do that too. What released kind of simultaneously alongside Absolum, just because of the date, was this free to play game on as far as I could see, maybe PlayStation and Steam is what was it called? Blue Protocol? I don't have the full title for it, but I think I added it into my library because it was just free. Um, Bringing it up. Oh yeah, I totally forgot Wuthering Waves is also like on Steam. I should try it on Steam Deck. I want to see if that actually like runs. But I also don't want to get into Wuthering Waves because I have a feeling that I will. Also, shout out to Battlefield because that's showing up there too. Oh, here it is. It's called The Full Government. It's Blue Protocol Star Residence. I don't know much about like people's or I guess the take on it, the reviews. It is a free to play game, so I think it's just going to be an ever supported game going forward until it isn't. But that is something that's out there. So I mean, for those who are just worried about budget, then there's another free to play game out there. So not bad, not bad. I'll have to. I do want to kind of give it like an earnest shot, but I've been playing through the Hoyo games, so I'm just kind of tough. And also the Shinobi. That's too good. That's too good. I feel like I'm starting to like emanate a little bit of like Anaya when it comes to like the passion towards like some of these games. Granted, Shinobi's not an indie type of game per se. It feels like one, doesn't it? Because they haven't really been putting a focus on like the Shinobi games like in a while. But it's just so good. It's definitely like that's something that like both Phil and I would like totally be down for sure to try it out. But alrighty guys, I think that's gonna be it for I guess this bit. I'll just go ahead and finish up what I was gonna say here, or write down here protocol, because I got some other stuff that's going on like within the day, so I want to just go ahead and wrap it up here. It's otherwise kind of a shorter like podcast, if not still rounding out to an hour. So good job, me. Congratulations, you made it through another one. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here because time's of the essence. But guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll give you guys updates as far as like the health stuff like in the next pod, and we'll see what things happen from there. But otherwise, Thank you all so much for tuning in on this episode of DangIT Prodcast. It's been episode 562. My name is Justin, and thanks for watching, everybody. #bye, everybody.